Okay. All right. So thank you. So welcome to PERG's Coffee Break series looking at sustainability and specifically solutions for cleaner power on set. Today, we are excited to host a presentation by Valid Manufacturing. Valid provides solutions for the motion picture industry with generators, battery packs, and power distribution. And they have a new hybrid combo. Before I introduce today's speakers, I just want to thank our sponsors. Our annual sponsors this year that support all of our presentations are Anton Bauer, Airy, Astera, Camera One, Duclos Lenses, Dynamic, Lightgear, Panavision, Taylor & Taylor, the Camera Division, and Zeiss. So thank you to all our sponsors. Now let's move on and let me introduce, without further ado, today's presenters. Kamela Cosacchi is the marketing coordinator at Valid, and Ron Sansom is the mechanical engineer, and we're delighted to have them with us.
Yeah, no, we're really excited to be here. And so we're very excited to show you guys our equipment and what it can do for the industry if you switch to greener, more efficient portable power. I'm just going to run through everything on the deck here. It'll take about 10-15 minutes, and then we look forward to all of your questions afterwards for it. So Valid is a design and manufacturing company. We're located in British Columbia, up in Canada. So we've been working with the film industry for about 5 years, developing different efficient portable power solutions. Good. So the Valid Power System, that is VPS for short, and it's of all of our distribution units, our studio generators, and our battery packs. Our equipment is designed to really work together to give you the most efficient portable power system possible, utilizing the different units where they're needed, and then utilizing the generator to charge it all up. We'll start with our distribution. Our film product development has been driven by the industry. We've been listening to both the needs of the rental houses and the end users. Some of our customers are here today, which we're very excited to have you here. Valid's background is electrical design and metal fabrication. So this presented a natural opportunity for us to building out some distribution units for our customers. With the recognition of our quality, our customers started asking us to design them out some super quiet diesel generators. So in the center of the pictures here, we have our first unit, which is a 1400 amp tier 3. And then we went to town and started going to designing our tier 4 800 amp, which falls in line with your engine regulations set by the US emissions standards. Next, we started to see the push for green, clean power. So we went and started manufacturing our line of VPS battery packs. What you're seeing here, starting up in the upper left, is our smallest unit, the 104. This has a 10 kilowatt hour capacity and a 4 kilowatt inverter. Over on the right-hand side on the bottom is our 2012. So that one has a 20 kilowatt hour capacity with a 12 kilowatt inverter. It is mounted onto our VPS power cart, which was a lot of fun at Cinegear to let guests zoom it around. It's very efficient and portable, and I mean, the versatility is really what you need if you want to get it over grass or sand or any of those fun things. They are quite heavy, so the power cart kind of alleviates a little bit of that stress. Above it, you have the 4012. So this has a 12 kilowatt inverter as well, but a bit more juice with a 40 kilowatt hour capacity. And then in the middle is our big boy. So that's our 130, and it has a 100 kilowatt hour capacity and a 30 kilowatt output. We are also in the process of designing out some larger units up to about 400 kilowatts hour capacity and a 75 kilowatt output. Those are kind of still in development though, so we can chat about those and next time. And next slide. So for the industry to measure their impact, we recognize that they need to accurately track their usage and efficiency. All of our equipment, our generators and our batteries are equipped with this remote monitoring capability, which allows you to track the usage, fuel consumption, location, battery health, and a heck of a lot more. The systems send data to our website every 30 seconds, so you can see in real time what is happening with your units. What you're seeing here is what's happening with one of our generators. So the fuel levels, fuel consumption, odometer pressure, and that's all in real time. So if anything starts going haywire, it's going to start sending you some emails and letting you know that, and you can address it in the moment. And from there, as a rental company, or if you are the rental company, you would have full access to this information. And from there, you would be able to manage if you want your customers to have access and at what level. So we can go next slide. With our remote monitoring, we started to keep an eye on our 1400 amp generators, and we saw that they were being underutilized pretty intensely, going under 25% capacity over 80% of the time. As you likely know, this causes unnecessary buildup and forces the rental houses such as yourselves to load bank the units when they get back to the house. And that's also really inefficient on your fuel consumption. So you're really not being optimal when you're running those big generators at those low loads. You're causing yourselves a lot of problems. Not you, but your customers are causing some problems. So step one on our path to ultimate efficiency was developing our tier 4 800 amp, which we believed would be a nice sweet spot for, still providing enough power for a typical set, but not causing those low loads to give you excess emissions and fuel waste. So going down one more, let's talk about how it works. As the hybrid combo, we recognize that there was an opportunity to power those lower loads with a smarter technology, i.e. the battery, and then the generator can take on heavier loads. With our understanding of each technology, it just made sense for us to put them together. When you're looking at the hybrid, so the 30 kilowatt battery will take on those low loads that are bad on your generator, and then when it needs to be charged up, it'll automatically turn on the generator to do so. Then if you need more than your 30 kilowatt output, you can actually couple the two together, and it will do this all automatically and give you your 130 kilowatt output. All of our 130 batteries are designed for coupling or for daisy chain capabilities. So you can hook up 4 of them to each other, get your 120 kilowatt output, and then hook it up to your generator to charge them all up. So again, just creating those opportunities where you can customize how you to power your sets in different areas. We can go next slide. Yeah, so the industry does want to go green, and Netflix and Amazon producers are in a race for zero impact. So battery packs are a viable solution providing clean power, but they still need to be charged. And this is kind of what this graph is showing here. So when you're looking at your load, and if this is just demonstrating a typical load at 15 kilowatts per day, and you're going to see that the battery pack is able to maintain up to a certain point. So you're looking at your blue line there, and that's your battery pack, and that's the power that it's putting output. Once your battery is at a certain state of charge that you've set in there, which is your orange line, it's going to turn on your generator, which is that gray line. Now your generator is taking on the load and charging up your battery at the same time. Once the battery is able to take the load back over, you kind of fast forward a few hours, and it will turn your generator back off, take over the load, and then at the end of the day, when it wants to be finished charged up, it'll do so with the generator as well. So with this, you can see that you're basically reducing your full time or your runtime by about 7%. And then we can go next slide. So that's what it is and how it works. Now we can start looking at the fuel savings. And when you look at a diesel engine, it's much more efficient to run it at the higher end of your fuel curve. So with the hybrid combo, letting the battery take on your lower loads, you're automatically keeping that engine at that higher efficient load curve. Also, an 800 amp engine will consume less fuel to support the same loads as a 1400 amp. And when you factor in the fact that the generator isn't running during those low loads, now you're reducing your fuel by up to 40%. And that's kind of what this graph demonstrates. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions, so we'll dive into a lot deeper after the presentation. And then we can go next slide. So the next one we want to take a look at is your emission savings. When you track your fuel consumption, you can directly track your emissions reductions. And what we have here is kind of the 3 biggest concerns that you hear about with the diesel engines. So starting with your particulate matter, this is a mixture of solid particles air that can be seen to the naked eye. When you see those big plumes of black smoke come up, this is what you're looking at, the particulate matter. Nitrous oxide is a potential greenhouse gas that has 300 times the global warming potential of CO2 and can persist in the atmosphere for over 100 years. So that's some pretty nasty stuff that people aren't really making a big hype about. And the last one being carbon, and that's, diesel generators produce about 2.7 kilograms of carbon per liter of diesel fuel consumed. So with the Tier 4 engine, it's designed with its after treatment system to significantly reduce these regulated emissions by up to 98%, that being your PM and your NOx, making it the cleanest generator option available to date as it is alone. And then when you bring in the hybrid, I mean, you're also reducing that runtime. So you're just reducing your emissions even further. We can go next slide. So the last one is a big one for the rental houses, and that's your service savings. The VPS and 800AT4 studio generator, as I just mentioned, has its own cleaning features, which reduce the emissions and service requirements on its own. And that's because it boasts an auto regen feature. So it's going to take away all those toxins and soot build up during operation without hindering your performance in any way. Adding the fact that the generator is running a fraction of the time, now your service requirements could be reduced up to 70%. This is all based on like how the loads are managed, who's on set, these types of dynamics. So it's not an exact science, but this is kind of where we found like the average could be. And this could more than double your lifespan on your generators. So if you're looking for that longevity on your units, this is how you're going to get to it. And next slide. So yeah, that's the meat and potatoes of our products and what they do. We're confident with this solution of the hybrid that it'll make it easier for producers and end users to adapt this battery technology, just really recognizing that range anxiety and addressing it full on while still being as efficient and, economically or eco-friendly as possible. And that's the presentation. So now lay it on us.
I have a question. This is Jennifer Sandoval from Earth Angel. We provide consulting services to to productions throughout North America. Most of our work in Canada is actually in Ontario, so that was one of my questions. Are your units available outside of BC?
Yes, we have units across Canada and then a few down in the States as well.
Okay. And just in the ones that are in the US, are those, do you know what region? Is that LA or
New York.
New York? Okay, great. Okay. And then we just worked on a series, quite a long series actually. And the studio asked us to do some, just kind of observations of how they were using their generators. And again, we knew that we were going to see lots of inefficiencies, but we just kind of wanted to put some numbers to that. So this is really great. And what's one of the things that we saw is like in at least probably half of the instances of the, days that we were looking at, they could even go lower to like 500 amp. So I'm wondering, is that an option? Do you guys have that option? And also one of the things that we get, other feedback from is that the rental houses don't have anything smaller than 1,200 or 1,400 for rent. It's kind of like this automatic package that everybody gets. So we're just wondering, I guess, I don't know if this question for you, maybe any of the rental companies have the answer, but if we were to kind of suggest, what would the availability kind of be for those smaller options?
So for Valid, we're not currently looking at developing a 500. It has been a conversation with a few customers, and a few of our customers, including William F. White's, does have 500 amp units available for rent. And I do believe they are quite popular as they fit in the back of a truck. Basically, as you mentioned, it's a push-pull situation. So the industry would need to push the rental houses to get us to manufacture that. So that's where we found the 800 amp, because we didn't really recognize to go as low as the 500. But if there was a substantial push from you and you got the rental houses on board and they said, hey, we want 15 of these things, we'll do it. We're a design and manufacturing company, and that would make sense to us, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Very helpful. Thank you.
But it's great to hear that you're kind of on the same path as us and looking into the data the same way that we are and finding the same results, that there are so many situations where these large generators aren't really utilized or needed. And that's where the mentality maybe could be, changed a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's helpful just to have the numbers to talk about inefficiency, but I do sense that there's like, even like with all the options, especially with the electric, there's that range anxiety, right? So it's like, how many amps, is it really safe, right, to go on any given day, whatever. And because the set lighting, is so variable from, episode to episode, it's like, it's hard. It's a lot of like logistical work to actually kind of try to plan the power for the upcoming block. So that's what we're
Absolutely.
trying to help with. But again, it's, people are not willing to really go lower than like an 18K for like any electric options.
Yeah, and we've heard that exact same feedback from the industry, realizing that there are situations where you need a big boom all at once, and sure, it's only for 5 minutes, but you still need that big boom. And I mean, when you're talking to these guys, they want to protect their job, they want a PYA. So if they have an option to make sure that they're completely safe, then that's what's comfortable for them. It will take a little bit of encouragement from producers that want to go for a greener option and want to save those fuel savings and those emission savings and the service savings. That's going to have to come from a higher up position, I believe, and then kind of be a top down where they say, hey, there are options and you need to plan out your set a little bit, and then look into what kind of units would be more appropriate. And with our hybrid, again, that's kind of where we saw that there was an extreme caution with these battery packs and we get it. If you have a unit in the middle of a desert, sure, it's great to have a battery pack, but you still need to charge up your battery, and you need to find a way to do that efficiently. So our hybrid provides that solution.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? I can interpose one just to.
So I don't, as we are the manufacturer, we don't necessarily have complete access to the end users themselves. We work with our rental houses, and then they work with the end users. So our field studies is more driven from the data that we receive from our remote monitoring. It's not necessarily from the actual perceptive, like how the end user is using it. Unfortunately, I don't have that access at this time. So I look at my remote monitoring and I see what they've done, and then I take that data and I make assumptions like, okay, they needed this much power for this load. I don't actually know what they're powering with those batteries at that exact time. So unfortunately, we're just not there yet.
This is Mike Harwood. Excuse me. I'm the National Technical Director at William F. White up in Canada. What we tell our crews, just like ordering any piece of equipment, it's what you'll need. If it's a diesel generator, you need a 500 or you need a 1500 amp. So they'll gauge their current or whatever's on their package, whatever's in their truck, whatever's on that daily lighting list or set list for that particular day or location, and order the equipment, be it a 6 kilowatt hour unit or a 1500 amp generator for some 18K. So they order the equipment as they require, as per their script or their set lighting list. And obviously we help them where we can. We've actually had these things run the circuses or the base camps kind of thing as well. So it's we're starting to get them to used in different areas, even the DIT at the end of the day, people doing call sheets, things like that. So again, depending on what the draw is, how many trailers you've got in the base camp, just goes, they will order the equipment as they would in the past with diesel generators or any other power sources.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mike.
You have a lot of them?
Yeah, we've got quite a few. We're starting on, I don't know, it started out in BC and we're starting to get it here. Places like museums and stuff are starting to stop people running cable through windows and doors now. So we have to have multiple smaller units to be able to park in and around, places like we have one in Toronto, a museum that will not allow the film industry to run cable through the windows and doors anymore. So things like that. So again, depending if they're running small LEDs or they're running bigger units, they'll order the gear as they would the regular set equipment, everything from C stands to sandbags to 18K.
Some great insight. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that's really it's great to hear from the field.
Hi, it's Jennifer again. I don't have a question about the slides. I was just curious where we might be able to get an 800 amp in the New York City area. Like who's the rental house we would go to for that?
So we currently don't have any generator 800 amps down in
Oh,
the States, but
oh,
Mike and Raj, you do have some up in Toronto. I'm not sure what your reach is or if that's relevant.
The two we have in Toronto are both out working right now.
cool.
But Jennifer, I can keep you informed if we do start selling, once we start selling some
Mhm.
of the 800s down there, when and where they're available and who you can contact to get your hands on them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Jennifer, you're a producer?
No, we're actually a consulting company. So like we're either hired by studio or production companies or producers to help, kind of green the production. So we look at everything from, energy use to waste management to reporting, sourcing, all the stuff. But yeah, we've really had a lot of more priority, on decarbonization methods. So, that's one of the things that we've been working on. And just so like what we've been doing is trying to just kind of gather data right now and, looking at all the shows, like how are they setting up, like just exactly what we were talking about, like what are they powering, how long, how many days, and then we're going to try to, see if we can use that information, because a lot of the shows, season after season will basically have similar base camp setups, at least, not as much for set, but for circus and stuff. And so it's fairly similar season to season to predict. So, we can kind of try to see not only where they can electrify, but primarily, there's a lot of savings in terms of fuel and emissions from just downsizing. So, yeah, so we're looking at all that.
I wonder in your not to get too off topic, but I'm just curious, like it seems like part of what has to happen in order for it to be for the price to be absorbed by producers is for them to see that they're getting a significant fuel savings as well as being green and not having those things on separate budget lines.
Yeah.
And do you have any stories about that, about what people have been, what they're changing their attitude towards it?
Yeah, well, that's actually a really good question. And again, that's something that we're really trying to build transparency on in terms of like any green premium costs. So what we've seen in the past is, they put the rental costs for generators for cars, but they don't include fuel costs. So now we're making sure to get on, our own line, for every department, like what are their fuel costs? And what we can see is actually that they are paying, they are actually saving money with going with electric options. And, we're not sure yet as much for like the downsizing or like cleaner fuels, but for sure the electric options, we can see some savings.
Really? It's great.
Yeah.
Good to hear. This is an interesting subject. I know there's a lot of lighting and rental companies that have their eye on this, have had on their eye on this for many years and looked at various options over the course of time and are, I think there's a lot of people, Mark, maybe you can tell me if I'm on track here. There's a lot of people that are interested in getting into this and looking for a way to do it. They're just concerned about the investment and whether that investment pays itself. Whether ultimately producers are going to be willing to pay, sizably more for what they're used to getting for a certain amount.
Yeah, I agree with you, Harry. That's definitely the temperature that we've been feeling too. Like the green technology is a great technology, and of course we want to adapt it, but getting that ROI is also, a necessity. You've got to keep the lights on and stuff. So really got to make sure that we provide enough data for you guys to fight those concerns and show you what can be saved.
It's super helpful. There was, I think all this tracking of this information is something that is going to give people ammunition for making arguments. It was interesting. We did a coffee break like this earlier in the year on sustainability generally. And, one of the things that came out of that was, these various studies that have been done looking at the motion picture industry, which I would have thought was not really terribly big footprint, but it turns out it's awful. I don't know if people realize, like, it's worse than the airline industry in terms of footprint, which is hard to believe when you think of the thousands of jets that are flying around the world all the time.
Right.
And so, the Producers Guild has set this date of 2030 to see a reduction in greenhouse gases, and I think it's interesting. It's interesting how the entertainment industry is going to address it. The manufacturers are a big part of that. The rental companies are a big part of it. And if anyone has any final questions, last call.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the noise level. So when the diesel unit is running, it's running at its optimum power output to maximize fuel efficiency for charging the battery, correct?
Correct.
So how is that as far as decibels compared to, because normally we run our Jennies at low RPMs for noise purposes. And it's consistent as well over the course of the day, that noise level doesn't change, as opposed to, I'm wondering if the unit is kicking on and off periodically and operating at a higher RPM, has there been any discussion of that impact on set sound levels?
So Ron, I'm going to let you speak to the sound levels on that and kind of jump in into what you, with your testing, have found.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It is definitely something that we have considered from when we first built our first 1400 amp unit. We knew what we were getting into, which is, movie sets. So that was one of our biggest priorities, especially when we redesigned to our 800 amp unit. We looked at further decreasing the sound emitted from it. So with running the higher load, we are still running at a fixed RPM of 1800 RPM to get our 60 hertz power. So the sound difference between 15 kilowatts and 45 kilowatts there is really negligible. Obviously, as if you're running it in a high temperature desert, the fan has to, you're creating more heat, you're in a higher temperature, fan's going to spin faster, and it's going to produce more noise. But as for like our primary market here in Canada, our temperatures are fairly low and pretty standard, or they average out to like 15-20 degrees Celsius. So everything's kind of running very slowly, and is our exhaust air from the radiator is actually directed perfectly vertical, so that it's not reflecting off of a wall and bouncing off and distracting things. As to startup, I think there does need to be some consideration from the Geniops to make sure that, if they need a quiet set, either start the generator first or make sure that the generator doesn't turn on, because there would be a noticeable difference in the noise pollution when it starts.
Mm-hmm.
But if, once you're on set, back in April this year, I actually was able to go on set, and I was quite surprised. So we had our unit running, as well as there was a Super B, and from my ear, I couldn't hear our unit if it was on or not. And I could tell that the Super B was running. So, the Super Bs are shockingly quiet for how much power they output. And it was equal or less than that.
Interesting.
And with the hybrid, there are options. With the photos we showed, you can either have it mounted on one single trailer together, or you can break up the unit. So the 100K can be closer to your set, and then the generator further away. So if you're concerned about noise, you can separate them. Mike, from your experience, have you had any concerns with the noise level changing during the hybrid transition?
I think Dave actually mentioned it. The one thing we did want when we talked about it originally was be able to control when that generator kicks on and off, just because so it doesn't come on in the middle of a take. So they rectified that, but they also build blimp generators that don't supplement battery power. So we have several of their valid generated tier 4, tier 3 Jennies that again plonk them anywhere compared to some of the older units we have, and sound is not an option. But that was one of the concerns, that the Jenny op had to have control of that generator kicking on or off to either supplement power or to charge the batteries, and they've implemented ways that we can control when it does kick on, and so again it's not coming on in the middle of a take.
I would think it would be nice to be able to control that, not just to make sure it doesn't come on when if you're having the generator close, but also to choose to have it on during lunch, or when like if they've gone off to another location temporarily and you've got a couple hours that you could charge with. So is that the control set up that way so that you can choose when to supplement?
Yep, the system is completely configurable. So you get to say what happens and when it happens. Within the battery touchscreen, you control the state of charge that you want the generator to be turning on and off, as well as the capability to turn on and off. So the battery is designed to utilize as a standalone unit, but then when you want to turn it into the hybrid, you configure your screen to do so, and you're in complete control of that.
There is controls out and monitoring of them, so I can sit here at home in Toronto and phone the crew in Halifax to tell them that the batteries are getting low. Please turn on your generator to charge them up. So there's quite a few different monitoring systems on these units.
Is the protocol that's used to communicate between the battery and the generator the same protocol that's being used to parallel generators?
Ron.
No, not at this time. It is something that we want to get into our development pipeline. At this time, we're using a fairly simple 2-wire signal. There isn't like direct communication between the battery and the generator of like the status of either of them. But it is something that we want to get into development, and we've implemented the ability to upgrade it to, but we have not yet done the development on it.
Correct. So currently the battery is the brain, and it tells the generator what to do.
Okay. The reason it comes to mind is that I could imagine, a few years down the road, there's a lot of different battery packs and there's a lot of different generators. And if they were all using different proprietary systems, then that would be much less useful than if there was a standard and everyone had a way, like if I was using your valid generator, but I didn't have one of your packs, I could plug someone else's pack into it. It could tell your generator what to do, or vice versa.
Yes, absolutely. So currently, I mean, as Ron said, it is a standard 2-wire start that has the connection point. We are capable of outfitting generators with that if they don't have it. And I'm not aware of other manufacturers that have that capability on their generators, but I do hear you that if we could all have one conversation and get on board with the other battery producers and generator producers and all have one connection, that would probably be ideal. Whether or not we're capable of doing that, I'm not able to speak to at this point. The 2-wire is a very standard connection, though, so we've gone with something that we feel is very universal in itself, as long as others also have it.
Interesting.
Yes, no, thank you everyone for sure. Big thanks to Mike for jumping in and giving some more input, and Jennifer for your questions. And I would look forward to anyone's questions in the future. And if you have anything else you want to talk about, we'll love to open up more conversations.